This week's episode is sponsored by Reform, a Christ-centered functional health and holistic wellness ministry. Reform redefines health as the state of your body and soul. Reform's mission is to empower the whole person to find well-being in Christ and become the best versions of themselves physically and spiritually. Through their unique faith-based approach, Reform addresses the root causes of disease and creates an environment to heal the whole person. Reform works with private clients, corporate teams, religious communities, and educational institutions worldwide, both in person and online. They offer valuable information, educational resources, and lifelong tools to improve your well-being. We highly recommend their foundational 12-week online class, Reform Online. This class offers education and best practices through their 9 wellness pillars: faith, nutrition, sleep, stress management, functional movement, play, community, personal growth, and space. Through Reform Online, you'll reclaim your health and identity in Christ. We have all taken their classes and are still benefiting from the fruits in our health and daily lives. Reform is for everyone because everyone is made for wholeness and holiness. No matter how far away you may feel from wholeness in body and holiness in spirit, the Divine Physician desires to heal you. We're all invited to experience the fullness of life found in Jesus with our entire being, body and soul. We invite you to learn more about Reform on their website, reformwellness.co, and on Instagram at reform_wellness. Reform is offering an exclusive online discount for all of our listeners on their upcoming Lenten Reform Online class. Use code ABIDE10 for your exclusive discount through January 31st. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Well, hello, dear friends, and welcome to Season 12 of the Abiding Together podcast. We are so excited to be back with you for another season. Abiding Together is a place where you can find connection, rest, and encouragement on your journey with Jesus Christ. And we have people from all over the world on this walk together, and you are most welcome. My name is Sister Miriam James, and every week I'm joined by 2 of my very dearest friends, Michelle Benzinger and Heather Kim. And we speak about what the Lord is doing in our life, the movements of the Holy Spirit, what is breaking our hearts, what is healing us, and where the Lord is leading us to deeper relationship with Him. So wherever you find yourself today, wherever that is, you are most welcome. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and welcome home. Hello, and welcome to Season 12 of the Abiding Together podcast, our very first episode of the year. And as we always do, we've been on this call like 2 hours before we even record this episode and just catching up and talking about many things and praying for each one of you. We just prayed for every single one of you who would hear this episode. And without further ado, I just want to say hello and greet my dear friends, Michelle and Heather. Ladies, welcome. Welcome to Season 12.
Yay! We're back. Excited.
We are here. It's amazing, right?
It's been a good break. It's been a long break.
It is.
But so happy to be back.
Mm-hmm.
So good to see your faces. I mean, I know we've seen each other, you know what I'm saying? Like over the thing. Sister, let's tell the story.
Oh, this is the best
yes.
story.
Tell the story of the last time we saw each other. Okay, so this is absolutely crazy and such a little testimony, like to just the Lord's love in the little ways. So I was in Pittsburgh and I was supposed to be flying back to Seattle, and sure enough, like I was going through Chicago, my flight got canceled, as they do. Am I right, sister?
True.
As they do
We
these
know
days.
that.
Flights get canceled all the time. And so there was like 1,000 options of how I could get back. So I said to the lady, just put me on the one that's going to get me there the quickest, which was going through Dallas. So I was like, weird. That does not work. Like when you're going to Seattle, that was like a whole V, down across country. So I get to Dallas. I have like 3 hours. I'm like, just like wandering around. Maybe I'll get a coffee and maybe I'll sit here for a little while. Just like all these random decisions. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like all these micro decisions, like as I'm like just there and I have nothing to do for 3 hours. And I'm like, maybe I'll go head over near my gate, like eventually. And so I walk over and I get on, like I'm going to get on the little train and there's like multiple doors and I'm standing in front of one of the doors and it opens up and who was there but you, sister? You were right there. And we looked at each other. We're just like our jaws just dropped and our eyes were wide. We're like, what are you doing here? And like, I didn't even know you were traveling that day. I wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Like for us, that's a huge airport. For us to land in the same place at the same time. And not only that, but we had the same amount of time before our flights boarded. So we had time to go like have breakfast and cry over our breakfast tacos. And
That's what we always do.
it was just so perfect, wasn't it?
Well, and I love the providence of God, and was with Dr. Bob Schutz recently, and he talked about the definition of providence is being God always working out our good in the midst of everything, like God always working for our good. And that wasn't even the terminal that I was supposed to be in. And I had arrived, and I know I had a really long layover. I don't usually have long layovers. And I was going up the escalator, and I could see the tram was still there. But sometimes I've had to take off running to catch the tram, but I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So, and the tram was just still there when I got there, which never happens. So I even, waited, and I'm just, minding my own business, holding on to the little, handle, and it stops at the next terminal. And then the doors open, and I was just kind of in my own little world. And I look up, and you get on, and I just started crying. I hugged you, and everybody on the tram thought we were probably crazy. And I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing here? Like, what are you?" We
just kept holding each other, and I was just in so much shock. It took probably 3 minutes.
Yes.
And then we got off the train, and then the tears came because I was like, "What the heck, Lord?" And Michelle, you and I had seen each other because I did something in Florida and then spent a few days with you, but I hadn't seen you, sister.
Oh, yeah. We've seen each other a couple of times. We brought kids to school together and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we've had some time.
It's been a while since you've seen sister.
It was a long time. And we were sending voice memos back and forth the week before. And I was like, I wish you were just here. Sometimes I just need a hug. And you're like, I totally get that. And then there you were in the flesh.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
There you go.
It's those moments where you just go, Lord, only you would do something like this. There's so many micro decisions that went into this particular thing happening. And of all people, it was you, so I just felt so loved by God. The whole flight home, I was that person. I'm watching a movie, and then I'd think about it, and then I'd start crying again. I was just like, Lord, it was too much. It was too much.
Oh.
Anyway, it's good to be with you both now.
It was truly lovely.
Oh, it's so good. They just texted me this picture of them at breakfast. They're like, look what happened. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? But, it's so good though, Our hearts just need communion.
Isn't that so true?
So it is so good to just to be together. And we're back. We're back. Here we are. Since we've been gone. Yeah, here we go.
That song's been stuck on our heads the whole time, yeah. Yeah. So we want to say, first of all, thank you for joining us. And I know we probably have a lot of new listeners here for the first time. And we want to say thank you also to our listeners. You guys have been amazing. And it's been a much needed break. I think we could all admit it was just really good just to spend time with the Lord and allow the Holy Spirit to work in our hearts. And a lot of things have happened, which you're going to hear about. So we're going to break from a usual departure of having the first episode of a new season be, especially in January, the word of the year. And we're just going to spend this episode sharing with you the mysteries of our lives in union with the Rosary. So we're going to share with you joyful, sorrowful, glorious, and luminous mysteries that have happened to us in the last 7 months. And then next week, we're going to talk about the word of the year. And we just... we feel like we owe it to you, right? In our own hearts of where we've been, and our hearts carrying, your intentions and your just all listeners that have reached out over this time. And so we're all in this together. So we just wanted to start with that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. We'll do word of the year next week.
Oh, yes, we will. We will be having many, many words of the year. Yeah.
Because I literally am on the edge of my seat. I can't, we never talk about our word of the year before. So I'm like, come on already. I want to know.
I know. We want to hear all the good things.
I want to know.
Yeah. And just to echo Sister and Heather's just gratitude. Thank you all while we did take this break, we really felt like we were being obedient to the Holy Spirit to rest. Let the land lie fallow, just get some more nutrients back into the soil. And I think for each of us to go deeper into our own personal journeys, because we want our own personal lives to bear good fruit. And also we can't journey with you if we don't know where we're going in a deeper way. And we feel like we're called to go deeper in this journey of abiding together. But we actually have to go deeper first, in our own interior lives and our own personal lives and all that. But just thank you. And thank you for all of those just asking us, when are you coming back? I was up taking the kids to college, and I went to go get my coffee at the hotel. And I'm literally putting my coffee in the little filler up thing, it was a latte thing. And a woman comes up to me, when is the podcast coming back? Please don't tell me. I hadn't even had any coffee yet, no makeup on. I'm like, how did you what? Hold on. Yeah, we're coming back. It's just, we just need a little break. And so, but I mean, her exuberance was precious. It meant a lot to me actually. But so we're here and we want to tell you, like Sister said, just give you some highlights from what the Lord has been doing in this time of pause. So.
I would love to hear from you first, Michelle, because I know that you're going to try to throw it on another person. So I'm just going to beat you to the punch. So why don't you go first, my friend?
That's what we learned when we've been gone. Heather learned that she needs to ask me first. So there you go. So,
well, do y'all want to start with a quote from JP2? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Good. Yes.
Because Michelle, you found a really good quote about these very things. And And, we've all been pondering a lot of things. And so St. John Paul II spoke about the mysteries of the Rosary and pondering. And that's why we're talking about these things, not as just reflection questions, which they are, and you'll see them in the show notes, and you can add these to your prayer group or for your own personal reflection. But we're uniting our hearts to Jesus and Mary. And there's something about the mysteries of not like a puzzle to be solved or fixed, but something that's beyond us, that draws us into eternity. And so I just want to read a quote from John Paul II about pondering and the Rosary. And he says this. He says, Mary lived with her eyes fixed on Christ, treasuring his every word. She kept all these things and pondered them in her heart, Luke tells us. The memories of Jesus impressed upon her heart were always with her, leading her to reflect on the various moments of her life at her son's side. In a way, those memories were to be the Rosary, which she recited uninterruptedly throughout her earthly life. Oh, and I just love that. So when we talk about these things, and these stories are very sacred. And so we're just going to honor them and receive them with the way Mary receives Jesus, and just the way we're receiving the Lord's tender care for us in providence. So without further ado, Michelle, can we ask you first? So we're going to ask you, Michelle, about a joyful mystery. So a delight, an area of gratitude where you have felt the tangible presence of the Lord. And I'm sure there's been many this last 7 months, but a delight, an area of gratitude where you have felt the tangible presence of the Lord.
I think for me, the break in the podcast and then the break in my travel schedule, like I have pulled back from a lot of things just to really be at home and to go back to school, learning a lot and just being still, but in a different way. And life is still very full, even at home, just state of life and all that. But I think one of the ways that I was thinking about this with the questions is the joyful, is I've learned how to seek wonder out again in our everyday lives, in our ordinary lives. And after I took my second son to college this fall, which was really hard, and I wasn't anticipating it to be that hard, because I was like, I just did this the year before. Come on, I should be a pro at this. And then I came home and the house was really empty. And like the whole dynamics of our family had changed. And I grieved it for weeks after I came home for that. And so I was like, all right, we need to create some new traditions with the 3 kids that are still at home. So one of the things we did is we started Wonder Wednesdays. And we would go out during the school week, which is, really full. That's the only day that we don't have sports practices, is we would go out to the beach for a picnic dinner and watch the sunset. And I just can't tell you like how good that has been for my soul, and to watch my kids embrace it, and to just, me realizing that I need wonder and awe in my life to feel fully alive, but that there's something about seeing that sunset on the ocean where I just feel God's delight in ways that are just so tangible and so present. And that like, it really reminds me like, oh my goodness, I am created for wonder and awe. And there's a huge void when I don't have it, or when I don't seek it out or pay attention to it more like it, like when I'm not observant or pay attention to the everyday wonder in our life. Yeah. So that's probably one of my biggest joyful things this season. Yeah.
Wonder Wednesdays. Woo!
Wonder Wednesdays. Everybody's doing that now. They're like, note to self, Wonder Wednesdays, putting that in my calendar now.
Wednesdays.
That's great.
Yeah, there you go. Sister, what about you?
I think the last 7 months have just been on the road a tremendous amount, and just seeing the Lord work so deeply in the lives of people has been so joyful. It's been glorious. It's been luminous. It's just all the things. And we had our second healing retreat for bishops in the summertime. We've had our very first ever healing retreat for major superiors of women religious community through the CMSWR, through Kim Glass, Father John Burns, and myself. Beautiful. And it was under the umbrella of the John Paul II Healing Center. And it was stunning to see these beautiful, courageous religious superiors and their vicaresses come and receive healing. And we're going to do that a couple times a year now. And it just moved me so deeply on so many levels. And yeah, just spending time with people, hearing stories, and just traveling across the nation, seeing what the Holy Spirit is doing. And and like you, Michelle, there's such a wonder to that of, wow, Lord, like who am I to be able to walk with these people and hear stories and see what God is doing? And it's so lovely to see people's humility and to see their hunger and just to see their crying out for the Lord. Oh gosh, it's been so joyful and just such an honor just to, walk with people and hear their stories and just see the Lord work. So for me, There's so many different ones, but that's like the summation of it, of just seeing God work in people's lives.
Just love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What about you, my dear Heather?
It's hard to narrow it down, isn't it? I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, one thing? I don't know. That's so hard. I think, one of the joys of this last season for me, I've been traveling more than normal. I normally don't travel a lot, but now that our kids are getting older and there's just we're just in a different season, I'm able to say yes to some other things. And so, just like preaching and teaching and being with people and praying with people and hearing the stories and similar to you, sister, like that has been so, I don't know how to express it. It's so sacred and so personal and so like it's part of like the calling that God has on my life, mixed with people allowing me to come so close into their story, which is such a privilege. Like it's hard to describe that feeling of like people open the door into some of the wreckage in their life or just these tender places, and to be able to sit with them and invite Jesus in there is joyful. All of those things mixed up, it sort of like doesn't quite do it justice. It just feels like a taste of heaven in some way, like that you're allowed to sit in the presence of God with other people in these really sacred places. So there's been just a lot of fruit and a lot of joy found there, and coupled with just my own relationship with Jesus through all of the other mysteries that are happening. And I'll just touch on this in the joyful part, because I've just grown in so much intimacy with him that has been a source of really like a deep, deep joy, but also I feel like I'm falling in love with him all over again. And I just can't get over it. I can't get over him. I can't get over his goodness. I can't get over how present he's been in the midst of some really hard things. So there's a joy even in the midst of the hard things, because he's been so incredibly present. And I know that this is a time, it's strange because it's all mixed up in one soup of like, I feel like there's some desolation places, but there's so much consolation. That's why seeing you in the airport that day was even a part of what God was already doing with me personally. He's been so close to me over these last several months. I can't get over it. I'm just in so much gratitude, and I cry a lot now just because I feel so loved by him, so cared for, so seen. I don't know. It's different than before. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've been walking with God since I was like 14 years old, so there's been a lot of ups and downs, but this is just a different place than I've ever been before. So that's, the place of joy.
You can see it on your face. Our viewers can't see you, Heather, but you can see it on your face. Like the transformation that you've undergone the last 7 months especially it's written all over your face. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It is. It's been beautiful. Heather and I were somewhere together a couple months ago, and I was telling her a story, and I was getting choked up, and I looked over, and Heather has tears. I'm like, Heather, you're crying. She goes, yeah, I cry now, like even in public. So,
I was like, are you so proud of me? This is new Heather. I cried out.
Yeah, she would cry in public. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So who knew? Oh, but that's great. Beautiful. What's the next mystery, sister?
It's sorrowful. So what is a sorrowful mystery you've encountered the last 7 months, and which we're going to define as a hurt or an obstacle? So what is a hurt or an obstacle that you're just feel called to share, as vulnerable as you want to be for all of us, that you'd want to share with everybody?
Yeah. So when we first decided to take the break, I was like, whatever you guys want to do, like this feels good. Yeah. Take a break. And there was a lot of reasons for that. Like we had people moving on from our staff. We didn't have all of these people like support staff, and as well as just personally, there was a lot of things going on and busyness, blah, 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 all the stuff. And we just felt like, it's not clear what the Lord wants next. So let's take a pause. I didn't know what was coming. Like I didn't know what the space was for. I was sort of like, what am I going to do with that extra space? And then, one thing led to another. And I found myself in counseling again, doing a deep dive into some things. And I didn't really know what was about to happen. I just knew it was time. And I hoped that the new counselor I was seeing was going to be really good. And by the second time I met with her, I was like, holy smokes, like this is the one. And we're going to go to places that I think I've never, ever been before. Not because I was avoiding them, but because I wasn't equipped to do it. And the counselors that I was seeing before, it just wasn't the right fit to go that deep. And so I feel like that's been the deep dive that's been occurring in my life in the last 6 months in particular. Yeah, I can honestly say it is probably one of the most painful times that I've been experiencing. And it's very dark. That's what I feel like it's like I'm going under the surface, and there's this, if we use the iceberg analogy, it's like, yep, there was stuff on top that I could see and that I could understand. And I just didn't know how big and how deep it went underneath. And it's very painful, to be honest. You both know that. Painful to have to look at it, painful to have to be really honest about these places in my heart where there's been ruptures that have occurred and where there's pain, and also the sorrow of not knowing a way through. Ultimately I know Jesus is the way, and that's why I'm doing this to begin with. It would have been much easier to just stay on the surface and not go here, but there's just something in my heart that's like the Lord put there a long time ago. Oh, this will make me cry. I can't settle. I just can't. That's JP2 for me. His words of don't allow yourself to be ground down by mediocrity. There's just something that the Lord switched in my heart many, many years ago that just won't allow me to settle for something when I know there could be more, or I know that Jesus is asking more. So yeah, I just swung open the door really wide this time. And I think, Michelle, you talk about layers a lot. It's like an onion. It's like from Shrek, it's layers, donkey, layers, donkey. And it is. And I feel like I wasn't ready to go here before. I feel like the healing journey is you get equipped as you go, you get stronger as you go, but also your trust with the Lord builds as you go. And so you become more ready to encounter certain places that are even scarier because he's there. And so I'll just finish with this last little reflection because I don't want to take our entire time up here. But I saw Matt Maher. He came up to do a concert, and we're friends. And so we were backstage and we were talking, and we were just really sharing what was going on. And I was saying, I feel like I'm just staring into the abyss, and it's really dark, but Christ is so close to me, but I just can't. I can't see. And he said, Heather, have you heard about this sculptor? And he made this statue, and it's called Christ of the Abyss. And it's off the coast of Italy. And he said this sculptor sculpted this bronze statue of Christ that's 8 feet tall, and his head and his hands are raised up in the air, and he's looking up, and he plunged it 50 feet down into the ocean. Wow. And he said, so it's even if you go down, Christ is deeper still. This is Christ of the Abyss. And there's this plaque down there of Psalm 139 that says, even if I go to the depths, you are there. And that, as he's talking, tears are streaming down my face. And I just thought oh Lord, I'm probably going to tell this story 1,000 times, because this is what I feel like is occurring. I'm going down into the depths, and Christ is there, with his arms wide open, extending peace and presence and grace. So yeah, even in the midst of the sorrow, he's still so good.
Amen, friend. Amen.
How about you, Michelle?
For me, sorrow is, I won't get through with it without crying.
Friend, yeah.
The time that we're recording this podcast, I think we're maybe 2.5 weeks. My dad passed away unexpectedly. So, and he had a heart attack about a year ago. I think I actually mentioned that on the podcast. And there had been reconciliation in our relationship at that time when he had a heart attack. And, he made it through, and he had gone home, and he was doing physical rehab and therapy. And then 2.5 weeks ago, he went down for a morning nap. He wasn't feeling well, and he just did not wake up from his nap. He did not wake up. And so my uncle found him and all of that. And it was just very jarring. It was very unexpectedly. And there's so many layers to the story. The Lord was so present and so faithful. St. Joseph was so present to me in this whole process. And I was the one that I did most of the details for the funeral, and I have a lot of siblings, and everyone came in, and there was just a lot going on, a lot of family dynamics, everything. I was the one that my dad asked to do the eulogy, because I'm really probably I am the only one consistently practicing her faith out of all of our siblings. I mean, Catholic faith. let me rephrase that. And so there was just a lot. But I think one of the biggest things is, one of the blessings was that I was able, when he died, a lot of healing that I have gone through, it's been a lot, majority of it's been some memories through him. But after he died, I remember it was like a flood of memories of all the good. And it's almost like I had blocked the good out. I'm like, oh my goodness, there was a good amount of good. Like, and I was able to experience that. And it was really, really beautiful. But I wasn't expecting the depth of grief that happened when he passed away. And it's like, it broke open something in me that could not have broken open unless he passed away. And I realized how I had armored up previously to protect myself from my dad, fair or not fair, because he was emotionally unavailable, because he was not capable, not a judgment, just the fact. I realized that's where my self-reliance and hypervigilance came out of. So I put a wall there, because if he was going to be emotionally unavailable, I was going to be emotionally available. So he was already that way. And then I realized after he died, like, oh my gosh, he physically abandoned me. You know, that's what I felt. And this time the Lord's like, and you will not armor up. You will allow to stay open. And it's just been like a vulnerability and a healing that is a wound that had to be completely open. And I don't think it could have been open until the passing of his death. For the Lord to really come in, we were already reconciled, but I don't think the Lord could really redeem and restore that relationship this side of heaven. I know that sounds kind of funny, but I feel like my dad just was not going to be capable of the tools to do that. But in this season, he has been. But it has been, the only word I have is raw. There's just a rawness and a vulnerability to me that I've never experienced. But there's a freedom in that, because there's just like no pretense whatsoever. Like, this is it. You know, like I can cry, but it's beautiful too. And I think the last thing on that is, it has given me great appreciation for the image of Mary when they said, a sword will pierce your heart. And even though there's great pain, the sword will pierce your heart. At every picture we see of that, her heart is still open. So even though in the midst of great pain, there is still great openness and receptivity, and not closing my heart, keeping it opening. And like I said, not armoring up, but allowing the process. So yeah. Sister, what about you?
Oh, Michelle.
As I'm like snotty.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. And like, how do you, I just feel like being like Job's friend, like just to be quiet, just sit with you there. And like, what do you say, you know, like, what do you say other than just to offer care and compassion, you know, just to be with? And those are hard things. It's hard things, like when our world stops and everybody else's world keeps going on. It's like, what are you supposed to do? You know? Yeah. Yeah.
I know, it was so weird. Like, I was thinking about different people that have lost. I'm sure that we have listeners here. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost my dad. I have to go get milk at the grocery store. Like, I have to go get milk. Like, and I'm walking in the grocery store thinking, does everyone else know that life as I know it just stopped? You know? But in people's worlds just keep on going on. And many of us have lived those stories and are living those stories now, you know?
It's the hardest thing.
It
like,
is.
I mean, it's really weird as a human being that we can feel like our insides are completely like undone. And then you have to walk somewhere, make dinner, like you said, like go grocery shopping or something. And somehow we hold all of these things. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he is faithful.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess just in light of what you both have shared, which are such beautiful things, I guess when I prayed about a sorrowful mystery, and of course there's always like disappointments and things that you wish would happen and they don't happen the way you think. And I think from mine, I just want to say like mine feels trivial. And so I just like offer this to people who have like little things that just keep hurting. And it's not the big thing, but it's like, and then you're like, why does this keep hurting? It's just little. And yeah, I'm just surprised at just even as I share that. But yeah, like 4 months ago, I had it just seems to have been silly to even share this, but like 4 months ago, I had this weird sprained ankle, and I didn't fall down. I was just doing like kind of some strenuous exercise without shoes on, and I woke up it was like 4 months ago. I woke up in the morning and my ankle was swollen, And it was just interesting. It didn't pop. I didn't hurt anything. Like everything was fine. And my ankle was really swollen. It hurt a lot. And I have had I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Like I need to go to the doctor. That's what needs to happen. But my ankle has been wounded for 4 months now. And at the first I couldn't even put weight on it. It wasn't enough to have crutches, but I couldn't stand on it. It was swollen. It was hot. And I knew something wasn't right in it. And I couldn't go for walks. And then it's healed gradually over time, but it's still enough to where it impedes it impedes what brings me joy. And one of the things that brings me great joy is being outside and going for walks. And so I always have to monitor it. Like I have an ankle brace on right now and things like that. But I don't usually suffer physically. Like that's not just, I usually suffer emotionally or spiritually. And I've been praying a lot about this of like, Lord, what are you saying? Like, what are you, yeah. Cause it's just enough to keep hurting. It's just enough to where you can't forget it. It's just enough to where every night I see it, it's swollen. And yeah, it's gradually healing, but I've been praying about that of like, Lord, what are the things in my life that I've dismissed that are like, this is not a big deal. Like, how come I can't like get over this? Or how come or what are the things that need extra support, like that need extra support so they can rest in order to heal to the roots that are not major catastrophes, but they're the little things that just have the power to keep us from being fully alive. And so it's a mystery. That's the thing. It's like, this is such a mystery. Nothing happened. Like I didn't get in a car accident. I didn't fall down. But yet here it is and I can't deny it. So I guess for me, it's just been I don't know what else to do other than just, keep like tending to it and just be mindful of it. And, like just make sure the muscles aren't tight around it, and I can't make it go faster. Like I cannot make it heal. And so I think for me, that's been a very mysterious thing that I've been praying about a lot and just one that is painful every day. And I know people who live with chronic pain at a catastrophic level. And I could just only imagine just even physically, like we talk a lot about emotional pain on this episode or on these podcasts, but it's like, I know people who catastrophically suffer physically every day. And I think God bless them. What a suffering that would be. That's largely misunderstood by most people around them. And just, yeah. So anyway, it sounds silly, but I just wanted to offer that, so yeah.
I don't think it sounds silly at all. And especially because, I know how active you are and how life-giving walking is for you. Like that's like you don't have a lot of control over a lot of things in your life because you're traveling and you can't bring stuff with you and all of that stuff, but you can always walk. Like you can always, even in the dead heat of summer in Texas, like you get up earlier, like that's something that's really like a lifeline for you. And so to have that impact, that's no small thing.
And I saw pictures of your ankle. It's no small thing. And so like it was really swollen. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, dear friends. So our next mystery is a luminous mystery. So a mystery of light. We're just going really deep here. I love it. So something that the Lord brought to light, an area of pruning, a longing, and an ache. So a mystery of light, something the Lord brought to the light, an area of pruning, a longing, and an ache. Michelle, do you want to gently go there with us, or what would you?
Yeah, I think for me, the beautiful things, even reflecting on this, the mysteries feed into one another, don't they? Like they overlap and they are intertwined with one another. And for me, just with the death of my father and just different things, November was a heck of a month. Like all these things happened. I had a couple things happen with my kids right before that. The week before that, I'm like, woo, like Jesus, if this is how you treat your friends, no wonder you don't have so many. Like, come on. But one of the beautiful things was, I think that he's brought to light is that my humanity, like in my littleness, is something to really have, we talked about this before on the podcast, but to have holy curiosity about and compassion and not to belittle or really just condemn myself or shame myself for my humanity in different parts. And it was interesting. Sister and I were up in Archdiocese of Philadelphia for their women's, they had a Women's Day of Reflection. It was beautiful, but it was at the Shrine of Our Lady of Czestochowa, and neither one of us had a devotion to her at all before we went up there. I'm sorry, everyone from Poland right now. We love you. Now we do have a devotion to her, but if you do the research of her, and if you've seen a picture of her, the Black Madonna, she has a scar on her face. And I was reading some of the stories about her, and many artists have tried to erase the scar on her face, and they'd wake up to the next morning where the scar would come back. Divinely, the scar would come back into the painting. And the reason they said this is because they wanted to see the scar of our humanity to be seen and not that there's beauty in our humanity. And so the Lord is just really highlighting that for me. Like, there is beauty in your humanity. These are the areas that I want to redeem, and these are not things that you need to hide. These are, I mean, I'm not going to showcase them and put them out on the front porch either, but they are.
You might put them on a podcast.
Just tell them.
Yeah.
Tell the whole
Just
world,
a
tell millions
podcast.
of people. But other than that, no, we're not doing that.
Other than that, but not in great
did say
detail.
that. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. True. Sorry. Yeah.
I know. No, but isn't that true? Like, even in what we're sharing, like, there's a lot of veiling going on because of just the sacredness of those places,
Kids.
right?
Yeah. Transparent, but not detailed. Yeah. So that just being said, my humanity and its compassion and curious. And the Lord, when I take that approach, I go to the root of it. And instead of like chomping at the leaves, as Dr. Bob always says, like cutting off the leaves, if I take that root, because there's something deeper, and then I can go deeper with that position of my heart. Yeah. So what about you, Sister Luminous?
I think for me, a great luminous mystery was a private retreat, a silent retreat that I did here at our house, at our convent a couple of weeks ago. And it just happened that I was all by myself, which is just very providential, like the way the Lord worked that. I was all by myself. And like I said, I'd been on the road a long time, and I just needed that. We always have an annual retreat, but the fact that I didn't have to go anywhere, I could eat as much kale as I wanted, which I ate a lot of kale, and I did what I could. But the Lord just brought up the Song of Songs. So I spent a week in the Song of Songs and also Psalm 139. But the Lord brought up some, and this is not a sorrowful mystery. That's the thing. I was like, this is a luminous mystery. The Lord brought up some deep memories that I have worked through in counseling and spiritual direction and deliverance prayer and things like that, but things I haven't thought of in a long time. And I knew they were of the Lord, like just the way that he brought them to the surface of my heart. And at first, I mean, they're some of the most shameful things that I've ever experienced in my life. And at first I was like, oh, is this a distraction from the enemy? But just the way that I could behold those memories in my heart. And for the first time in my life, not just process them intellectually or like, okay, Jesus, where are you? But I could feel them in my body. And it was the first time in my life, it was like 4 dimensions. It's like the Lord opened up this huge, like I could see the memory. I could remember the age I was. I remembered what I was wearing. And I could breathe for the first time as that little girl. Like I could breathe. And the Lord gave me words to finally say what I would have wanted to say if I could have spoken at that moment. It was frozen. And I could I can't articulate. It's like I could sit with myself and that little girl, like I saw Mary and Joseph show up and that little girl could finally speak. And something happened to me, like something profound happened to me that I can't even, something happened in the foundation of my soul. Like just this transformation. And I'm so great. Like I'm so grateful. Like I couldn't have conjured it up. It just was so far beyond me that it was a new way of experiencing some of the most painful places of my life that the Lord brought deep light to, and deep illumination and deep peace. And I'm still in awe about it, and I'm just profoundly thankful. Like I'm just absolutely profoundly thankful for it. So that's what I would say that's my luminous mystery. Yeah.
So beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm. That's deep. It's so deep. Yeah. When you were sharing with me after your retreat, and I just said to you, it's just so true. Like, it's so beautiful to see how much you trust Jesus. Like, just how much that's grown over the years. Like, there's just so much fruit that I'm seeing for both of you of like how deeply you've journeyed with Christ into other areas, so that these ones that you're in now are going so deep, so deep. It's just beautiful to see that like growth and progression.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both. What about for you, Miss Heather?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the areas, again, like I agree with you, Michelle, they're all sort of tied together. So as I'm journeying into all these deeper places in my own heart, I think something the Lord is illuminating for me is parts of myself that I had just set aside for a long time, like younger parts that are fun and that are important, things that are so important to me about who I am that I didn't realize that I had just sort of like pushed them aside for a while because I didn't feel like there was a place for those parts of me or, whatever. And so I think the Lord is just illuminating that he wants to restore, some very young places like within me that are deeply who I am. So I feel like it's the process of becoming who I really am. And it's not that I was being false. I didn't even know it was happening. It's so funny to think like you can feel like you're pretty self-aware that all of a sudden when the Lord shines his light on something, you're like, well, okay, that's different. Like, and yeah, I did have some perspective, but how could I not see this, And it's like, well, you weren't ready to see that yet. Now is the time. It's just a different turn on like for such a time as this, like there's a reason for this now. And so I'm curious about what the Lord wants to do with that, but there's something really deep in me that's being restored, parts of myself. Yeah. That have been under the surface for too long, I think. So.
That's true, friend. It's like we said, it's easy to see on your face, girl. You look like 20 years younger. I'm not kidding. It's just like there's a youthfulness, like that little girl inside is coming to life. And it's just, I noticed that when I saw you that day, and I see it now. It's like something's happened to you. You can tell, Yeah.
And I think part of it is, like you don't know where to put certain parts of yourself from your story, like before Christ or, all of those things. But then also simultaneously, I think I've realized I'm just someone who will just keep giving and giving and giving to other people and that's a good thing. But realizing now in the process of that, I lost some of myself that I shouldn't have, that I let some things disappear that I shouldn't have. And so it's a time of healing in that way.
Amen, friend.
It's beautiful,
Amen.
friend.
All right, dear friends. Our last mystery that we're going to talk about today is a glorious mystery. So something you see the Lord redeeming and restoring, and it can still be in the process. So a glorious mystery, something you see the Lord redeeming and restoring, and it can still be in process. So Michelle, do you want to offer one of your glorious mysteries?
Yeah, and it is still in process, so much in process. And so, but yeah, I think one of the big things, I think, Sister, you were touching on your private retreat. I think the Lord has really, in this whole work that each of us has done individually, but one of the big things is integration, like integrating myself, body, mind, spirits, emotions, spirituality, all the above. But it's really been body part, like really how somatically taking a class right now on, healing somatically in your body, and if anyone wants to know more about this, The Body Keeps Score is a really good book, how we hold trauma in our body, all that kind of stuff. It's not a Christian book, but or Catholic, but it is really good, just explaining the science behind everything. So I've been going to a restorative Pilates class, and these women are lovely. And anyway, but they are just really nurturers and healers, but they are really helping me heal and listen to my body in different ways. And I think like the Lord has started on this journey, like with reform. We had Jackie Mulligan on the podcast talking about that like was like an on-ramp to it. But the Lord has shown me like there has to be deep emotional healing in my body too, and really listening and being attuned to it. And it's just so beautiful to have other women teach me that, because I think it's a skill that has to be learned. It doesn't come natural to majority of us. And I can't tell you, like still, I've been doing it for 2.5 months still, and I make appointments or whatever. Almost every single time I go, like before I go, I'm like, oh, I need to do this instead. I want to cancel this appointment. I was like, what is that in me that just will not, I will put myself last, Heather, like what you were saying. I will, this thing needs to be done. And I was like, all right. I mean, so I feel like the Lord is really showing me how to love myself well in a healthy way. And it just doesn't come natural, but it is glorious because he's redeeming it. So it is beautiful in all of its forms.
That's wonderful.
Heather, what about you?
I love you so much. Yeah, so something the Lord is redeeming and restoring. So my dad in the summer had a couple of strokes back to back. And I just want to say thank you to all the listeners that were praying for him. I got so many messages and it was just like really such an incredible support during that time. And my dad is like was really successful in his life and quite capable and all of these things. So to just see the impact of that on him and his cognitive abilities and, stuff like that. So he's really his memory is about 20% now. Like there was a lot that was lost in that time, but I that's not the part I want to focus on. So the glorious part is that he also has lost like his guard being up. So I think he was like pretty tough. Like he comes from Scotland. He's a scrappy Scottish guy who was a police officer and had to put on a good face. And he experienced, a lot of hardship in his life and had a really difficult family growing up and all of those things, and just like so many years of suffering in different ways and loss. And so I think he had this hard exterior where he would just like suppress a lot of his emotions, and he can't do that anymore. He's kind of past that point. And so I came back from a trip, and he loves a good story. So I was sitting there telling him all the stories, and he was literally on the edge of his seat. And like 1 minute he was like laughing, and then the next minute tears were streaming down his face. And it was just so, I've never seen my dad like this before. He was just so vulnerable, but in a really beautiful way. And so as much as there's been loss and it's hard in many ways, and he needs someone around 24/7, all those things, like I'm really hopeful that this is a time of healing for him. And in turn, it's a time of healing for all of us in our relationship with him, because he is really at peace right now. And there's no arguments, there's no guardedness, there's just none of that in the way anymore. It's just this really soft-hearted dad. And his communication is quite low, his ability to communicate. But what you see in the eyes, and when he hugs us, when we walk in, like it's really, really special. It's really, really beautiful. So that's what I can just see God is about a restoration work in his heart. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm like, if this is what it takes, Lord, then let your will be done,
Oh gosh, Heather, thank you for sharing that. That is a mystery. The word that comes to my mind is mystery. Like you said, what a mystery. If that's what it takes for the Lord to go to those places in your dad's heart for all of you, then how mysterious and beautiful, how glorious. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think for me, something the Lord is redeeming and restoring is in the interior life. There's some desires that the Lord just began to birth in my heart 10 years ago. And I've just been noticing them. It's like a little seed that was given like 10 years ago. And I've just been noticing it. And, it wasn't like, it's like a mustard seed. It really wasn't big. It was very small. And I've just been noticing just how some of those desires have been growing. And it's like I would check on the plant every now and then just to see what it was like and kind of like where it was growing. And it would get a little bigger. And then I would forget about it for a while. And then it would come back, come back to my, interior life, my interior attentiveness. And yeah, so I think the plant is growing more and more. And it's a mysterious plant. I mean that in all sincerity. I don't know really it's something there, but I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen, or I don't know what the Lord is meaning for it for. So I've just been asking the Lord recently, like, Lord, what is this? What is this? I don't know what it is. And I'm just, it's like all of us have been talking today about timing and just about pondering, like, keeping all these things and pondering them in our heart. And so I just wanting to know, or wanting to take action, but then also knowing it's not time. It's just like the waiting, and then kind of seeing what's overflowing. And there are many times I'm like, Lord, either bring this to fruition or take it away, because it's just painful. It's just like, so, but the Lord is asking me just to wait and just to see how he wants to provide, like he wants to work this for my good. So I don't know, like, I think for me, it's like sitting with those places and on a natural level, wanting answers or wanting to see how the story is going to unfold, or like what this quote unquote plant's about, but also just like you were saying, Michelle, sitting in wonder. And you were saying, Heather, like, just if this is what the Lord needs to do, like in these deep places of just mysteries that I don't know the answer to, but just to sit beside and wait to see and ask the Lord to cultivate on my end, whatever he's asking me to do. Yeah. So just kind of interesting to notice of like, all right, Lord, what are you doing? And I don't want to pull up the plant, or I don't want to try to make it bear fruit before it's time. Like, the Song of Songs says, do not stir up love before it's time, but just to let it grow in its own accord and then cultivating it the way that it can. So yeah, I think maybe all of us have places like that where we've been praying about something or noticing something in our hearts for a long time. And it's like, Lord, when are you going to do something about this? Or when is it going to bear what I want to see on it? And being okay with the unknown, like being okay with the mystery. So I don't know, just noticing that as well. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That's good.
Thank you.
So good.
Well, friends.
Well,
yeah,
people.
we dove into this, like probably one of our longest episodes we've ever recorded, but it's like the bonus plus the bonus.
You're welcome. We gave it to you because we miss you.
If you're still with us
Yes.
even now, then, you're most welcome. So anyway.
I know many people partway through are like, seriously, guys.
Yeah, really, it's the first episode.
Stop
like,
talking.
geez, like at least offer us some hors d'oeuvres or something before you do that. I mean, my gosh,
seriously.
go right to the main entree.
They're like, we laughed, we cried. Welcome back to season 12.
All in a day's work.
Here we are. Yeah.
All in a day's work.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, we couldn't let the first episode go, ladies, without our continual tradition. If this is the first time you're listening to us, we always, at the end of every episode, choose a one thing for the week. And it could be a recipe. It could be a fun experience. It could be a book. It could be a playlist. Heather Kim is very famous for her playlist or her music. So without further ado, my dear, wonderful friends, Heather Kim, would you like to share with our listeners your one thing for this week?
Yes, my one thing this new year is Father Mike Schmidt's Catechism in a Year podcast that he's doing. Yes, I'm so excited about this. I saw the trailer in December and was just like, what? I mean, I had heard about it, but when I actually saw it and it was like a recording of him, like a little video of him like reading just the opening part of the catechism. And I was like, yes, this is going to be so good, because I think so many of us don't dive into the catechism, and there's so much beauty in there. It's just like, it's a book, contains all the teachings of the church. And when Michelle and I were going to school, we had this class where we had to like do a test on the catechism. Do you remember this? It was like horrifying for all of us, because it was really like, I think 35 multiple choice questions, and they were all right, but it was like you had to know the language of the catechism. So it would be like truthful statements, but it wasn't the actual language of the catechism. And if you got more than 2 wrong, you failed the entire program.
Dang, girl.
This was no joke. Like, it was no joke. So we all like dove in and started to experience the beauty that is contained in the catechism. Anyway, so super excited about this. I hope everybody at least checks it out. And I'm really excited for all of our non-Catholic friends who want to know what the church really believes. I hope this is actually a real blessing to you. Michelle?
That's wonderful.
What's your one thing?
My one thing is 2 one things, as usual, keeping with tradition. I know you missed it. One is actually a book, and Sister is part of the book too, but Rachel Bowman sent it to me. Word on Fire produced the book, but it is With All Her Mind, A Call to the Intellectual Life, and it is varied authors, women authors, and they're different concepts of the intellectual life and what the Lord has done with that within their faith. And I just loved it. I loved it because every woman is different. I loved all the different nuances. I love their stories. I love everything where you have a variety of different women and just their experience with the church, their experience with the intellectual life. It was just a beautiful array of people. Sister has a chapter in there also. And I just highly, highly recommend it. I'll put the links. And then the other thing is, I have to give a shout out to a artist. Her name is Elizabeth Wade Studio. She's not a Catholic artist, but she does beautiful artwork and watercolors of different stories. And everyone that is around me got one of her things. She does of different books. Like I have a tea towel of Pride and Prejudice that she does. She has Little Women. She has Chronicles of Narnia. She has Lord of the Rings. And she does these beautiful maps. So either they're pictures or tea towels or whatever. Tons of people got their tea towels for Christmas as their Christmas gifts. But I just love her creativity and her beauty. And she brings things that I love together, art and story. And she does it so beautifully. So Elizabeth Wade Studio.
That is,
Sister, what is your one thing?
Well, I just have one thing, and it's a ministry that we met at the women's conference when we were in Philadelphia, and the ministry is called Hope's Garden. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful ministry of, and I'll read their mission statement to you. It's a ministry that's devoted to Christ the bridegroom. And their mission statement is this: Hope's Garden is the sanctuary in which the spousal love of Christ the bridegroom heals hearts, marriages, and families. And they have so many resources about the Song of Songs. They have resources about Liturgy of the Hours with Christ the Bridegroom, the consecration to Christ the Bridegroom. And that was something that I spent time with on my personal retreat. But they also have support groups for spouses who have experienced emotional betrayal, like if their spouse is addicted to pornography or things like that, where places they can go to also just receive help and healing. And it's just such a wonderful ministry of the truth of who Jesus says he is, that he's the bridegroom. And so we just wanted to offer that to you. They have so many, just so many resources. So check out their website, Hope's Garden.
Beautiful resources.
Yeah, hopesgarden.com. And I think you'll be deeply blessed by that. So, yeah. Well, welcome back, ladies. And thank you so much, listeners, for sticking with us and joining us on another adventure. We have a lot of amazing things for you this season. I think you're going to love them. And we are just so grateful and just such joy of being on the journey with you. So until next week, we will be abiding together. God bless you. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you liked it, would you please share it with a friend and leave us a review? We encourage you to head over to our website, abidingtogetherpodcast.com, where you can find all the show notes, links to our One Things, group discussion questions for each episode, and beautiful coffee mugs, t-shirts, journals, and prints in our shop. There you can also subscribe to receive our weekly email with links to each new episode and all of the content. We'd love to connect on social media and invite you to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so you can catch inspiring reflections every day. You're also welcome to join our private Facebook group and dive deeper into discussions with our fellow listeners. If the podcast has blessed you, would you prayerfully consider financially supporting us? The Abiding Together podcast is only available due to the generous support of our listeners. There are significant costs associated with creating this content, such as tech support, design, website, equipment, and hired staff that we need to be able to continue offering great content. Abiding Together is a nonprofit 501c3, and all donations are tax deductible. You can make donations of any amount through the Patreon website, or you can send us a check directly if that's easier for you. If you donate $15 or more per month on our Patreon page, you become a tribe member, and you will receive bonus content every month, such as recipes, music playlist, downloadable prints, and more. You can find all the information at patreon.com/abidingtogetherpodcast. Thank you so much, and God bless you.